Okay, it says
Hi.
live up there. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, we're on. We're on. So, hi everybody. I'm Becky Grabski, and this is Sunirmalya and Symons, right?
That's
Um,
right. Yep.
yeah. I and so we're here and we're talking about our experience with the Sri Chinmoy Centre. And so I have to tell you all how privileged and excited I am to be online with this guy. He's just beautiful, and he is on the group that we're on. He just adds so much heart to everything that he says, and he just to all the conversations. He just adds so much beauty and light and heart, and I'm truly honored that he's spending some time with me this morning, and it's his evening. So, and it's late for him. He's had a full day. So thank you so much, Shinamaya. I'm so happy you're here with me.
I want to say it's a great privilege to be interviewed by the angel of our group. So everybody everybody's talking about Becky as being the angel of the group, and I feel really honoured to be interviewed by you.
Oh, wonderful. So, okay, let's get started. So, I'm going to use the same format that Gary uses because I think it's a good one. So, what were you doing before the center, and what was going on with you, and how did you get involved, and yeah, what was the start for you?
The start was actually a bathtub, Becky. The real beginning of my spiritual life was a bathtub. I guess at about 16 or 17, I really started to search, and I looked into a lot of different groups, Hare Krishnas, Buddhist groups, Christian groups, prayer groups, all sorts of things, and I was also doing a lot of drugs and drinking, and I was pretty much at a loss, I guess. I finished high school and was about to go to college, and I was a bit stuck as to what I would do with my life, and I decided that I wasn't going to do anything until I figured it out. And so I went surfing and went surfing a lot and drunk and did drugs and things like that, and had lots of relationships and lots of fun. And I've always been a kind of happy person, but I guess when it all really came to a head was in a bathtub. I was getting baptized by a Pentecostal church. I don't know whether you know about Pentecostal churches, but they're into speaking in tongues and all of that sort of thing. And the way that
Okay.
they recruited me was by telling me that if I was baptized, I would have this wonderful mystical experience of talking in tongues. And the way it unfolded was I had some pretty um, you know, pretty nasty recruiters, really. It was a pretty full-on experience,
Mm.
and so I agreed to do this baptism, and I was in this back room of this church, and they gave me a pair of shorts to wear, and and I sat in this bathtub, and the priest came. Everybody was, like all bowing and scraping to this priest, and he said, "Look, all you have to do is say, 'Praise the Lord, praise the Lord.' I'm going to duck you under the water 3 times. You just say, 'Praise the Lord' 3 times, and you'll come up speaking in tongues, and you'll be saved forever. You'll never have to worry about, because you're now going to go to heaven, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And the reality that unfolded for me was that I did my 3 dunks in the bathtub, but just before he did the dunks, he actually opened up these curtains, and I was center stage of this church, and there was 300 or 400 people all
Oh
out
my
there in the
God.
audience, and looking at me in this bathtub. And saying to me, everybody was saying, "Oh, praise the Lord, praise the Lord." It was this really crazy situation. And so I basically had no experience at all. I just felt wet and embarrassed and a bit sad. and I got out of the tub and I left and I thought, that's it. I'm definitely not supposed to be a Christian. I'm definitely not supposed to be talking in tongues. This is not my path. And I went, and on the way home I walked and sat underneath this tree. I'd read about the Buddha, and so I decided I'm going to sit underneath this tree until something comes to tell me how to figure this out. And I was so mad with everybody. I was mad with God. I was mad with Jesus. I was mad with the whole situation because I really felt like I'd been trying hard, to figure out what was going on. And all that had happened was I got kind of embarrassed, and so I sat there for maybe 2 or 3 hours just yelling at God, inwardly, and eventually a voice came to me and said, "I'm not your teacher, but I'll show you a teacher in a couple of days, in 2 days." And
Wow.
and so I went home that night, and funnily enough, I was kind of looking around everywhere for signs then to see, like seagulls flying by. What does that mean? Or the clouds are parting. Is something going to happen? Nothing happened for 2 days. But then I just went in to get my unemployment benefits at the local town, and I saw a poster for a Sri Chinmoy thing with Kishore and Prashanta, and I went along to that. They were the Melbourne Centre leaders,
Okay.
and it was that night, and it was free, so they were kind of all the ingredients, and I thought this must be it, and so I went along, and it was just everything they said. Suddenly, everything just connected. It was like every other thing that I'd been to, the Buddhists or the Hare Krishnas or whatever else I'd been to, there was always something that wasn't right, something didn't fit, and all of a sudden, everything just fit, and it really felt right, really felt perfect for me. And
That's
and so it
beautiful.
was kind of an interesting time. Well, it was kind of an interesting time what happened after that because, and I think this is common with most of us. I mean, and it's something that I'm really proud of with the disciples is that they didn't. We all had to make enormous kind of changes in our lives, And for me, I had to go from I was going to get married to this girl, and she was so freaked out by the path and so freaked out about this Indian guru rather than, I guess, her parents were full-on Christians, and
Yeah.
so I said to her, look, I can't not do this. I have to do this, And she said, oh, I can't do it because it's going to kill my parents. And so I had to leave her, and the funny thing was as well, I had this crush on this girl since I was about 12, and in that week as well, she after she found out that I was splitting up with my fiance, she came and said, why don't we get together? And I said, well, I can't do that because I'm about to be celibate and all this business, So it was a really, really fun time. But
You
needless
really
to
had to
say,
sacrifice.
yeah. But actually, the thing was, at the time, it didn't feel like anything. It didn't feel like any sacrifice at all. When I look back at it and I look at the things that had to change, there were some huge changes, Like I basically had to give up surfing. I had to leave, that lifestyle of all my friends of drinking and doing drugs. And I had to leave, my fiance. I had to leave another girl that I had a crush on since I was nothing, and all of it was really easy. All of it just felt so right. I just had to do it, It didn't feel like it was a struggle at all. It was just, it was natural, and I felt really good about it. I felt really good about it. So,
Oh,
and
that's
it was
wonderful.
funny because even then, yeah, even then when I remember, and I'm thinking about this now, we had a class for all of my hippie friends, and about 30 of them came when I was just joining. And about 7 of them became disciples, and then 2 of us were, after about 6 months, there was 2 of us left, and my mate stayed with me for about 5 years, and he left eventually, so I was the last one, last
Wow.
kind of fruitcake, I don't know whether you, last crazy person left of the group that went off with this Indian guru,
That's awesome. I love that story. That's great. Yeah.
Oh, so
So,
the bathtub was, it was important. The bathtub was that was where everything happened,
yeah.
and nothing happened at the same time.
Wow. Um, so, so you became a disciple, and uh, so now, you know, what were the what was the thing for you about being a disciple? What was the oh, actually, so I noticed with the Yogaloi, he really connected with the transcendental. I did not. I couldn't. I wanted to so desperately, but I just couldn't meditate with it, although I faked it whenever anybody was looking. But what was your thing? What was your connection? How did you connect?
Well, being in Australia, it was a very remote thing that we had to do, I think, and it was all the transcendental. And I'm with you. I had a lot of trouble in the beginning, going, do I have to meditate on this thing, And and I actually found it easy to meditate on nicer pictures of him at the start. But as time went on, I really got into it. I really quite liked it, and I used to, yeah, I used to love meditating on it. Yeah, and I used to carry it with me everywhere, and I would just be, yeah, trying to meditate all the time with it, especially like in a car, on a train, or whatever else. And, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, being a disciple in Australia, being so far away, what was your experience as a disciple? You know?
It was very disciplined, Becky. The centre I was with, Kisho and Prashanta were just absolutely model disciples. I mean, and the absolute nicest people we've ever met. They're really, really lovely,
Hmm.
lovely, lovely people and lovely centre leaders, and really inspirational. I mean, they were just meditating all the time, just totally meditating all the time, and everything was about Guru. Like everything, every moment was about what's Guru doing now. How do we connect? We're watching movies all the time. We're just kind of really singing his songs all the time, really trying to be in that consciousness all the time. And in a lot of ways, we didn't have the width that other disciples had. In that, you know, you didn't see bad disciples, for instance. You didn't see kind of that. You didn't have that kind of breadth of experience. You just saw these amazing, um, really disciplined, really focused centre leaders, and who were so in love with Guru. And I think it really made it actually quite easy for us, because we had that kind of model, and we didn't have the alternative kind of views. Like, for instance, um, we didn't have Swati. We didn't have that kind of influence. So we'd see um, when you go to, you know what I mean, right?
I do. I
When you
do.
go to New York, yeah. When you go to New York, I'd go to New York, and then we would see everyone, but everyone was on their best behavior anyway, because it was celebrations, and everybody was really trying to be, spiritual and all the rest. So I think, there was a long time in there for me where all it was just really quite, very disciplined and very spiritual and very focused, I think. And we just had a ball, really had a great time.
So, what did you, in your meditations and in your experience, this sort of idyllic disciple experience that you've been having, what were some of the personal experiences that you had? I mean, did you have any aha moments that you remember, or what were the highlights of your spiritual experience?
Look, I think in the main they were in the presence of Guru. They were like, I really, really loved meditating with Guru. I really, really felt that it was just so powerful. And this is up until the last few years, but I was a disciple 22 years, and I would say, 15 years, first 15 years, I just thought the meditations were fantastic, and they were really powerful. I really enjoyed um, the Esraj concerts, and I really liked the flute. I wasn't a big fan of much else of what Guru was doing. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his singing or the harmonium or piano playing or whatever else, but I really connected with Esraj and flute and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I really loved those concerts that Guru gave, and just the opportunity to be in his presence, and also just to feel. I felt his meditations were very powerful. The thing that being in Australia, I think, gave us though was, I never felt like I was a big fan of Guru. Like I wasn't. Don't know how to explain it. Like I wasn't in a fan club. I never felt like I was in a fan club of Gurus. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
what it was he was a conduit to my meditation,
Yes. Yes.
and that conduit could be very easily taken away. It wasn't necessary. It was just he was helping, but wasn't the be all and end all. If he wasn't there, I'd still be able to meditate. Do you know what I mean? And so I'd never felt really that my life was about trying to be a fan. It was more about utilizing, I guess, what he was doing as a spiritual master, let's say.
That's awesome. And thank you for saying that, because that's actually a lot of what I felt too. When I was meditating with him, it was just extraordinary for me. But I never really surrendered my life uh, to him in the sense of becoming that fan, like you're talking about.
Mm,
I
mm,
loved meditating with him, and I loved being in his presence because I got so much out of that.
mm,
But I did feel like I was utilizing something for my benefit, and not something that like you said, uh, all the whole fan club thing. It That wasn't necessarily my experience either. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that. You were a disciple for 22 years. I forgot to ask, from what year did you start, and what year did you leave?
it was 79 to 2001.
Oh wow, you were a disciple when I was a disciple. I was 99 to 2001. Yeah. So
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights? I know that the meditation was good, and you lasted for a really long time, which is amazing, in a good space for a really long time. Um, so, what were some of the highlights? What did you do while you were in the center? What was the fun? What was the fun part?
Oh, look, to be really honest, the fun part was I really love being with Guru. That was one thing for sure. But actually, I had so much fun with the disciples. I just connected so much with the disciples, and I was really lucky to be in with a group of friends that were uh, just having a great time, and just playful, and
So,
not
what did you
taking it
guys
all too
do?
seriously. um, and in particular, my best friend, I guess at that time was one of my best friends was Caton, and he was living the life of Sardine, really. He was living right on the edge of everything, and so he was always trying to get me to kind of break down the I guess my discipline or whatever, and I kind of enjoyed that, and a lot of times I kind of felt he was right, that we should have fun, we should enjoy ourselves. And he
Yeah.
struggled a lot with everything. He was gay, and he struggled a lot with his sexuality, and he struggled a lot with the path and discipline. He struggled a lot with all the gossip and all the stuff. He was really in amongst it, in as far as all the rubbish that goes on in the centre as well. And so it was interesting for me, but at the same time, those guys, there was a bunch of us that all lived in Caton's garage during celebrations,
Hmm.
and some amazing characters in that lot, amazing disciples. and also I was really good friends with some people that are still there, you know, and well, a lot, just about all the guys, you know, I really enjoyed all of their company, and I think, you know, I posted the other day saying about how I felt that so many of them were a part of my soul now, and I feel that really powerfully. I feel like there's so much widening and deepening of my experience that they did for me, you know.
Yeah.
And as I say, that I wasn't a fan of Sri Chinmoy. The same thing I felt with with my brothers. That it wasn't really about uh, what, I don't know. It just felt to me much more like we were just contributing to each other, empowering each other, deepening and widening our own experiences. You know, through just being together and hanging together, and I played a lot of sport in the centre. I enjoyed all the kind of the sports side of things. I enjoyed that part of what Kuru was into, and I really had, you know, lots of people that I had, you know, deep admiration for amongst the disciples. And like I say, I kind of think of the disciples in a real, with a lot of esteem, you know, because I think of them as each one of them had to make huge sacrifices to join the centre. You know, most of them had to give up their lives. You know, most of them had to accept that they would never professionally be anything. You know, that they had to kind of leave the world, and they also had to accept that, you know, what they were doing. I think it was really being uh, saying to the world, this is my life. You know, I want to be a spiritual seeker, and to me, it's like, you know, we went to you know, athletics camp or something, you know, an elite athletes camp, and these were the elite spiritual seekers of the world, if you ask me. And I still think that. I still think, you know, that the disciples were a really, you know, special spiritual seekers, and had really, you know, amazing things to offer me, and also, you know, we offered each other. And so for me, I've never kind of gone away from that. I've always thought these people are something, you know, that I've got to worship. And especially the last 6 or 7 years as a disciple, I really became aware of what I was really attracted to with the disciples, you know, and not so much Guru. That's how it became at the end. That the reason I was still a disciple was the disciples, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the big thing for me when I left. I left the disciples, and it really broke my heart. And it for the next several years, and even, you know, even until this group um, that we have, which is so special, um, because we get to be disciples, but we get to be ourselves, and we get to connect the way we want to. And so it's such a special place for me because I get to reconnect with my family in the same way that you're talking about the disciples. That's exactly how I felt, and I think a lot of us feel the same way. And to have been um, taken away from that, even though, you know, I had good reasons, but was just a hardship, and it broke my heart. And so it took years to feel that, you know, I think sometimes when we have a broken heart, um, we oftentimes think that we have to fix it, that it has to be fixed and mended, and but I think what happens is that it doesn't need to be fixed. It just you just need to have um, more things in your life that that fill it, so that the brokenness or whatever becomes smaller and smaller because you've got all these other experiences that you're having. And it just took a long time for me to, I guess, learn to live with the fact that I wasn't with my family, you know, and that I was doing other things. And so it was a big deal to find this group for me, because I felt like I was able to live. I was reunited with my family again, and and so and just with you and with everybody else. And so it just has and that had a very, very healing quality to it. Just being able to be with you guys again, and but in a way that was much more open and authentic and real, and where we could really
Yeah,
share
yeah,
ourselves, regardless of whether we were boys or girls, or whether somebody was an older
yeah,
disciple or younger disciple, or whatever status they had or didn't have in the center.
yeah.
Here
Mm,
we get to just relate to each other, one-on-one or
mm,
group to group, and just to be who we are. And so we get to really we get to just be, with each other, and that's the gift that was
yeah.
for me. So
No, I think that's beautiful, Becky. I think that's beautiful. I think what you're saying about reuniting with the family and having these authentic conversations. I think that's absolutely my experience as well. I'm enjoying every part of it, and I think we just nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
yeah. So you were talking about, like, for 15 years it was really great, and the last years it was more about the disciples, and not so much about Guru. But I was wondering, so what changed for you? What was, how did you shift from those first 15 years to the last part, and what was that for you? What was that like for you?
It was. Look, it was like when I joined, it just fit the same thing. Like when I joined, it felt exactly right. But when I was leaving, that felt exactly the time had come. I started to look around, I started to see things that were just going on that were a bit kooky. There's some really weird things going on, and I started to think that something else was happening with the girls that I didn't want to imagine, but I thought it must be happening. And it scared me a lot. And look, it was a really simple thing that actually started the ball rolling. It was Guru talking one day. I was at the house, and he started talking about, we were watching some show about uh, people landing on the moon, and he started to say that they never landed on the moon. And I just went, that's just crazy. It's just crazy shit. And it also was kind of, there was a few other things, like my background is in computers and IT, and he was making all these kind of really random decisions about emails and internet access and all that sort of stuff, that I just thought, this is crazy, because he doesn't understand that the internet is going to be huge, and
Yeah.
emails are going to be huge, and it's just going to be the way we're going to breathe. And you can't just kind of discount this stuff. We're all going to be Amish or something. So there was a bunch of stuff like that, and also, yeah, once I started looking around, and once I realised that Guru told lies, I started looking around and I started seeing lies everywhere. I just started thinking, boy, I wonder how much of this is made up. And so the more I looked around, the more I got kind of anxious about it all. And it took me a couple of years to really compute it all, I guess. And it came down to, I was still like a full-on disciple, but I remember there was a bit of a crisis for me at the end. I was about to go to New York, and I decided, look, I got to get this together. I've got to figure this out. So
Hmm.
I had been, every month I would go and do a 7-hour meditation, which is, I'd just go sit in my car in the bush somewhere and
Yeah.
meditate. And so I went to this. I drove my car into the bush, and I said, this meditation is going to be about whether Guru actually, um, you know, is real. And it was pretty confronting for me, the whole idea. But I sat there for 7 hours, and I thought, if Guru can come through and tell me, you're mistaken, you're wrong, come back, it's all going to be okay, then if anything happens, like I say, a seagull crashes into the windscreen or something, then I'll know that's a sign.
Yeah.
But nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened, and all I was feeling more and more was, it's time to go. And so I went again the next day, and I did another 7 hours in the front seat of my car, looking at the transcendental and meditating on the bush, and it just kept on getting stronger and stronger. The feeling that I've got to go. I've got to get out of here. And so I just didn't go to celebrations. And
what year was that?
And so that was pretty much it. That was 2001. It was just before September 11, that August, So I was about to go to August celebrations and decided not to. Yeah.
So how did you actually make the change? I mean, how did you actually leave?
I just didn't go. I
Did you
just
tell
didn't go to
anybody?
celebrations.
I mean, did you have a
Look, at that
conversation with
point,
anybody?
I talked to a lot of people, yeah, but and a lot of people were trying to get me to stay and stuff. But at that point, I was centre leader in my own town, and so there was nobody really that had any hold on me. And later that year, I think it was that year. Later that year, we had a Christmas trip in Australia, and Guru asked me to come, and so I went to that, and I thought I'd go for a week or two. And at the same time this was happening, my partner now, she was in the centre of Disciple, and she was deciding to leave, and we hadn't got together or anything, but she was deciding to leave, and so I kind of thought, this is an opportunity too good to not to, I mean, too good to miss, kind of thing. So I said to her, look, I'm thinking of leaving as well, and we went and had a lot of conversations and a lot of talk about it all, and I'd been secretly in love with her for a while, and so
Yeah.
it was all pretty easy. And anyway, she came with me to that Australian Christmas trip in Cairns, and a lot of my old friends, Kishore and Devashishu and a lot of other people, Caton and others, tried to talk me around, and I really got close again to saying, yeah, I'll come back. And I just suddenly thought, God, what am I doing? I've already decided this, and so I just didn't. I just didn't do it. I said to them, yeah, I can't see any other way of doing this. But then as I was driving away, I thought to myself, this is crazy. I'm not coming back. And I didn't go back. So that was pretty much it. And I don't remember too much else about it. There was a lot of other things, a lot of messages going back and to and fro. But lots of it now are just kind of buried. I haven't thought about it in a long time, so I don't remember too well.
Yeah. So did you have any? What was Guru's reaction, or do you know what his reaction was when he realized that you had left or were leaving?
He said something. I know Dadavi told me that Guru said it's not true. Sunirmalya would never leave me. It's not true, And I remember thinking at the time, that's something I never thought would happen in my life. I never thought I would leave Guru,
Mm-hmm.
And I never even imagined leaving Guru. But the thing was, it was so messed up, the centre. It really was. And the stuff that was going on with the girls is one thing. The stuff that was going on with go
on. So you said that you started getting this idea that something was happening with the girls. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what were the things that you noticed? What were the things that were happening for you that got you to think about that or see that?
Well, without kind of getting too specific, I mean, the things that was going on with Ranjana, for one thing, was just so kooky, and the way she was treating people was so nuts. And Lavanya leaving, I thought was like a watershed moment for me as well. I mean, she was, I always thought she'd be there forever, and her leaving just made me go, well, what's going on, And so that part of it was kooky. Arlo was kooky, and the way that Ranjana was treating people was just nuts, the boys and the girls. I just couldn't get my head around it, and I couldn't comprehend that Guru was dealing with it the way he was dealing with it. I couldn't understand why he wasn't just saying to her, be nice. Why do you have to do that? And but he didn't. He wasn't saying anything, which made me think, the only reason that people were had that relationship with her was, to me, there had to be sex involved,
Mm-hmm.
And I saw young girls that I really, I'd seen them sparkle, I'd seen them just sparkle as disciples, and all of a sudden now they were grey and the blood was drained out of them, and I would look at them and go, oh my God, what happened to, um, Pari,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, what happened to Govinda? I can just see there's nothing there anymore, and I just saw that happen to a few of the girls, and I thought the only reason that could be happening, and also they had this, suddenly um, they were completely confident that they were going to be um, around Guru, talking to Guru all the time, and I thought, how can that be? The only way that can be is if sex is involved, and I couldn't say it to anybody, but it just kept on going around in my head. I kept thinking, this is so nuts,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did mention it to a couple of people, but I could only just say the kind of very little things that I felt for sure, But there were so many little things that for me it was becoming really obvious that something was amiss,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and so then it was really that was it, that was how I, excuse me, how I figured it was time to do something else. Everything was pointing to do something else, do something else, do something else,
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that was holding me back, really, as I was saying before, was the disciples. I just had this family that I wanted to be with forever,
Mm-hmm.
and it was completely getting messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing to have to deal with when you know that what you have to do is leaving people that you truly love behind to move forward. It's a
Yeah.
really courageous act. Yeah. So you left the center, um, and what did you do?
Well, it might sound a bit corny, but when I left, um, I said to myself, "What's the highest thing I can do right now? What's the best thing I can do for my life?" And I decided there were three things: there was the environment, world peace, and meditation. And I started up three websites: Meditation Society of Australia, World Peace Society of Australia, and the Environment Society of Australia. And I just thought to myself, I'll just see how this unfolds, which one
Mm-hmm.
I want to really connect with. And meditation was I always felt that's the thing I've got to keep doing. That's the thing I
Yeah.
really want to keep my focus on. And so I started that, and I mean, not long after that as well, I worked for a couple more years, paid off the house, and Sabina and I, we just decided we would go and live a whole lot more simply, and we bought some land up where I am now. It's pretty remote, and we call it a sea change. It's kind of like living very simply and spending much more time um, on ourselves and not so much on our profession. So I worked hard for a couple of years. Oh, not hard. I worked for a couple of years to pay off the house, and then we sold the house and moved up here. And and my focus became on the Meditation Society, that website, and so did a lot of that. We started up a little nursery. We have a little nursery now where we sell plants on the internet,
Oh, how
and
cool!
that finances everything. Yeah. And that finances everything, and the meditation thing is my goal. It's everything I want to do in my life. And we now have two little kids, and so that's 24/7 job as well.
Wonderful. That's really cool. That's really cool. So, tell me a little bit about what you're doing with your meditation society. Do you have a group that meets, or like how does that work?
Um, Look, I've just had lots and lots of different groups over the years. Have been had running 3 or 4 different meditation groups a week, and now we're down to a couple. But and I go and do workshops and intensives and things like that. The main thing though is the website and the podcast. You know, we have a million subscribers to the Learn to Meditate podcast now, and my kind of goal had always been to reach as many people as I could with meditation without anything else, without gurus and stuff, you know. I mean, I think the thing for me out of all of this, the thing that I wanted to kind of get to with people is meditation is love, and what I really want to kind of teach and to share with people that this is a skill that you can learn, and it's about being able to explore the way we love, and for me meditation is the most and the best way to describe how we love, and so I've been doing that. I've written a few books and as I say, done the podcast and the meditation site, and there's lots of people following it at the moment, which is great. But I would like for it to explode. I mean, about 10 years ago, I said to myself, I want to reach 1 billion people.
Wow.
So I'm 1,000th of the way there. We got 1 million, so have to do 1,000 million. So we've got a little way to go. But I'm still young and got lots of work to do.
That's awesome.
But I'd like to,
that's really credible.
Well, the thing for me that I think is a real sadness that I have about meditation is that people link it up with kooky spiritual masters, and whether it's TM or Rajneesh or Maharishi or whoever else or Guru. I just think that whole model has got to go, master disciple, it's got to go, and we've just got to get back to the kind of the science of empowering people to say, meditation is about how you love. It's about exploring the way you widen and deepen your experience of love. And so I wince. I feel so sad when I hear the disciples saying, "I'm not going to do anything anymore." Disciples that have left the center say, I'm not going to do anything spiritual anymore. It just that makes me, just rips my heart apart. I just think to myself, look, it's not. Spirituality's got nothing to do with Guru. Now, spirituality is love. It's meditation, and so for me, it's so much a part of the process is just keeping the meditation going, keeping that process going, and for me that's been the most important thing in my healing, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so what do you think about, the whole being ex-disciple and, what this group that we're in, I think we all play a role in this group, and I think this group is incredibly healing for a lot of people. I know it certainly is for me. What do you feel about? What do you want to say to disciples or to ex-disciples? What do you feel in your heart to share with them? And what and at this point, I've been asking all the questions. What do you want to say? What does your heart call?
Well, I guess the thing I'd like to say to the ex-disciples, and it's pretty presumptuous to talk to some of these people, but anyway, the thing I would say to the ex-disciples is it wasn't a mistake, and don't fill yourself with regret. I mean, what do you regret? Do you regret being so sincere, so wholehearted, so inspired? Do you regret that you gave your life to a really high goal? I mean, to me, we won't be marked on whether we got it right or not. To me, we'll be marked on how sincerely we loved, and how creatively we explored ourselves, and how sincerely we did that exploration, So I really hope that we all come closer together as ex-disciples and help each other heal, And for the people the disciples that are still in there, I hope they see out here that there's beautiful souls out here that are having a great time, and they can begin the process of healing as well. You know, that it's not a mess out here. You know, that they're loved, and that we want to care for them, and we want to help them. You know, heal as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I love the way you talk about meditation as a way of loving, and deepening the love, and being the love. Of course, that is of course my favorite subject. But so it's really so it's really wonderful and beautiful to hear you talk about it that way. And I admire you greatly for all of your efforts with your website, and with the heart and the soul that you put into it, um, and that you seem to really have your intentions very clear uh, about who you are and what you offer the world, and that you're you're really putting yourself out there and forward with it. You know, you're really allowing the love that you have inside to really um, uh, move you forward. And I think that's for me. Um, I think that's the important thing for me when I think about all of the disciples, next disciples, and you know, there are a lot of people living in a lot of pain because of whatever their choices have been. You know, we chose to do this for whatever reason. We had an inner calling to do what we've done in our lives, not just disciple, not just stuff that's specifically about being a disciple, but the different choices that we've made in our lives as a whole. You know, we've made these
Mm,
choices. We
mm,
you know, had the inner calling to do whatever it is that we've done, and how can that be wrong? You know, if we're listening to our hearts and our souls, and we're allowing that to guide us, and how can that be wrong? You know, and you know, we spent some time with Guru. You know, I only spent 2 years, and I got to tell you, you know, I know you spent, you know, 22 years, and it's a really big difference in time frame. But you know, I listened to myself to become a disciple, and then, as hard as it was, I listened to myself when I had to leave. And it wasn't, and I didn't want to leave. You know, I mean, my personality was
mm,
like, no, no,
mm,
no, damn it. You know, oh, you know, why do I,
mm.
you know, and there was a part of me that kind of resented the fact that I knew what was happening, because it made me
Mm,
change, and I had to leave my
mm,
family because I couldn't condone that. And and so I lost a lot of, well, lost, you know, otherwise I would have spent my life in the center. And so
mm,
it was really difficult for me to leave, but I had to, and I had to listen to my soul's calling. You know, and I had to move on to do other things, and I made other choices. And the fact is that you know, most of the choices that I've made were fairly difficult. But the whole thing is that um, you know, we have to love ourselves enough to know that our soul and our heart is truly guiding us to whatever experience we're having. And so when we're having these experiences, we have to learn to love them, as difficult as they may be, because they are here to teach us something. They are here to
mm,
help us grow and help us open our hearts, and you know, open ourselves to a greater experience of life. You know, we are human beings, and
mm,
we get
mm,
to feel all these different emotions. We get to feel love and compassion. We get to feel all the nice, gooey, wonderful, beautiful, wonderful stuff. But we also get to feel the pain and the anger and the resentment and all of these other things. But a lot of people think because they feel pain and anger and resentment and all these other things that that's a bad thing, that that's wrong, that something went
Mm, mm,
wrong in
mm,
the
mm,
world because they're
mm,
feeling these things. And and and
mm.
I I just beg to differ. Because the fact is that we are human beings and we get the opportunity to feel all of these things so that we can have a truly expansive experience of life. And we wouldn't really experience the joy of life and the connection and the love and everything else if something didn't break our hearts open so that they could love more and be bigger and be wider. How can we resent? How can we not want those experiences that break us open? And a lot of times it's a painful experience. And so, a lot of times, we have a lot of disciples or ex-disciples and disciples that are feeling a lot of pain because they don't recognize that all of their experiences are valuable. And and a lot of times people are so scared to follow their hearts when they know it's time to leave. They don't want to because they're afraid of what they're losing. But then they don't gain what they're supposed to gain from doing what they need to do. And so anyway, I just kind of went on my little rant there, but uh,
No, I know this is why you're the angel, and you're right in everything you say. I completely agree with everything that you say, and that I love that you're so full of connection and love with all of your brothers and sisters. And I feel that too, Becky. And I think you say you've been on the path for 2 years, but I think you figured it all out a lot quicker than the rest of us, and that's good too. You had the experience you needed to have and got out great. It took me 22 to figure it out, so I was a slow learner.
well, I think we're all just doing what we're supposed to do. And so I think for whatever reason
Yeah,
you were
no,
just supposed to be there for the 22 years, and I was just supposed to be there for the 2. And that's just the way it is, you know. But
yeah, I think that's right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So anything else? Any stories that you feel like you want to relay, or any other wisdom, or any other thoughts that you have that you'd like to share?
I think this has been a marathon already, Becky. Are people going to
Yeah.
actually watch this?
Yeah. They are.
We
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
They'll watch it because you're on it, so I'm lucky.
No, I think we're both lucky we get to hang out with each other. So okay. Well, thank you. I mean, truly, truly,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I am so honored and privileged to be your sister and to get to know you. And thank you for letting me be the one to interview you, because I just feel so honored. Um, and uh, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much. And I feel honoured that I'm the first one that you're interviewing, and I'm really grateful because uh, I'm sure Swadine would have done something really nasty to me.
Poor Sweating. No, we love him. He's great. I have to. So in closing, I just do want to say that I am absolutely incredibly grateful for Sweating, because he started this, and he really put it together, and he had the courage to say, this is what needs to happen, and he got it together and did it, and he started it, and we're all blessed because of it. And so I just really want to give a beautiful, heartwarming shout out to Swadine, and say how grateful I am, because this is really something that's certainly healing for
Me
me.
too. Me too, Becky. And the thing I read today, he's saying he wants to back off, and I want to say to him, you can't back off. We need you, and go harder rather than go softer. I mean, we need to. I think rather than him backing off, more of us need to come forward. So, like what you're doing, and I hope you're going to do a whole lot more interviews, and you've inspired me to want to do it as well. And I just think we need other thought streams, we need lots of these things happening, but also other things, so that the group just continues to flower. I just think this is a start, and it's a really good opportunity for us to put together something that's going to explode.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I love you.
Thanks,
Thank
Becky.
you. Yeah, and
I love you too.
and so I'll see you on the group.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks so much.
Okay.